Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. Last time we discussed Caged Capers, where we were looking at keeping mysteries local, and we branched into what are mysteries when you actually get into them, and introducing them in different game types and stuff like that. So it's a little sprinkling of the different things to consider. This time, we're going to be going into Globetrotting Gumshoes. So, if you are familiar with your detective vernacular and anachronisms, there you go. But we are going to be getting into that one, but where we focus on the larger mysteries, the bigger mysteries. The mysteries that really push into huge different areas, going into different areas, and as the name suggests, trotting around the globe, whether with espionage or just other mysteries. Before we get into that, let's do our introductions and announcements. I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads and the Gentle Voice Ministries. You can check out all the links to the Inn of Planar Crossroads right here at innofplanarcrossroads.com or iopc.com, the iopc.com. Either one of those works. And I mentioned it last time. I don't know if they're going to start showing any of it off yet or not in September, but they're working on their monster manual over at Avenue Studios I believe they're making it for Open Legend, and then they're going to do some other, they might convert to other systems too. I don't know. You can ask them. But I know that they're doing it for Open Legend. So that'll be cool. And I think that's the only thing that I have as an announcement. I might be able to show off some of the art when I do it, but otherwise, yeah. What you got, Scrat?
I am Scrat from A Squirrel Plays, and I am over on YouTube making videos mostly about the overlap between story writing and TTRPGs, while also trying to navigate the differences between those two things. And when I'm lucky, I get to do a TTRPG review every now and then. Trying to remember what the last one I did was, but it escapes me. It might have been Wasted World for EZD6. I haven't done one in a bit, so need to get my hands on some new ones. But on that note, we did have that was the last one I did. It was my own, which brought in a lot of new people, and they were very eager to share their stuff. And I had mentioned it in the last episode. One I'm hopefully we'll try by the time this episode goes out. It's called Tales You Die, which is where you use coin flips instead of dice. So it's supposed to be a super simple, rules light, and just grab it and go real quick kind of thing. So, which means it might be easy for my squirrel brain to understand.
Oh.
Here's hoping.
Never know.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's all I got.
Well, his system that he developed is called Nuts, so you can honestly say that Scrat's wanting you to get your hands on his nuts eventually. So.
There's been so many nut jokes.
Yeah. Hey, if it's just sitting there, it's just set up, so I don't care if they are cheesy.
It's low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah. All right, we better get into the spotlight before we get too corny in here. That's us, and our spotlight, our Levi spotlight, is Crackminis. Well, there you go. Crackminis is a kit bashing, model building, but kit bashing it and scratch building it and such like that. So, he's got, let me see, 1.24k subscribers, so let's get him up to, we'll be ambitious and say let's get him up to 2. I mean, that would mean everybody that I have would have to almost subscribe to him, but hey, Scrat's people are watching too, so maybe we can get it over there. We'll see. Bump him up. Tell him that the Interplanar Crossroads sent you. I think that's what we've got as far as our shout out. Anything else you need to shout out or say before we bounce into the actual discussion?
Oh, let's get into it.
All right. Well, grab your preferred beverages, dear travelers and viewers. Pull up a chair around the hearth and join us as we discuss Globetrotting Gumshoes. Skull. Ooh, a film noir. Squirrel.
Yeah, I remember to change it this time.
Yeah. You're quick on the draw this time.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be in this drenched world.
Exactly.
All right. So, with Globetrotting Gumshoes, our focus changes from the micro to the macro on the setting. So this one, some key points, and then we'll get into questions and discussions with Scrat. Embrace the scale with this one. If you try and keep this too local, it's not going to feel like a globetrotting spy thriller or something like that, like James Bond or something. James Bond is technically a lot more action than it is spy thriller. But, you know, there's got to be some action somewhere, I guess. Got to use all those cool gadgets. But embrace the scale. Be willing to tell big stories, but still make it personal to the PCs. So that's where your personal stuff will come in, is making it personal to the PCs on what's going on. And that can be done by involving the families in some way, or making it where this international threat is somehow specifically targeting them because of their close proximity to the situation or something like that. So you can work it in different ways as long as you are paying attention to what your players are doing. Usually they'll present you with plenty of opportunities to personally involve them in the game, considering they bought in and play in it. So tell the big stories that mean something to your PCs personally. Use real maps again is one of my notes. Make sure to, I'm going to keep bringing that up, especially with a globetrotting one, because let's say if you're setting it in the pseudo real world, having a map of the Taj Mahal or something like that, and having the players actually go there to solve a mystery. Assassin's Creed kind of does this, but not really. Well, what if you actually got a map of, not necessarily ancient Jerusalem, but, you know, an old map so that you can play around with some of the street names or stories or stuff like that and what's there, and give it a bit more of that. And then you had to find you're looking for the hidden Ark of the Covenant or something, going full Raiders of the Lost Ark type of thing. You could do that. That counts as a globetrotting mystery. So don't be afraid to borrow from that. It's okay to be touristy is my note, and that is a note to help me remember to say that the Taj Mahal, Jerusalem, like old ancient Jerusalem and stuff like that, and those, all the history that's there, the Mayan pyramids. Go to places. It's okay to go to places that, like the Eiffel Tower, you're going to have a mystery that's going to take them to France this time. Go to the Eiffel Tower, go to the Louvre, go to those places. I mean, there's maps of those places online. You can check them out and really give it extra flavor and extra oomph and immersion to your games by doing that. Paranoia is an option to increase that tension that you're feeling there, not knowing who, especially if you're doing a spy one and it's one of those who's a spy who's not type of situations that your players are having to deal with. Then, or if there's a turncoat, there's always a turncoat. So check those out, work with that, work with the paranoia that's naturally coming in and setting into your players. Doing in media res also can help. If you've got an outcome that you're setting up for them and you're pretty sure they're going to get there, they can go back and forth in time to, do flashbacks to figure out how they got there and stuff. And then hidden roles, again, can help keep the suspense up. So those are some of my key points and considerations. Anything you want to add in there, Scrat, or do you want to go ahead and launch into some of your questions and stuff that you have?
I kind of want to just start off asking where we kind of dipped off at the end of the last episode. I was asking about the length for those type of mysteries. So, like how many sessions or / game time hours, however many sessions it takes you to hit those hours. Is that any different for the scale of mystery, or do you think they benefit from the same amount of time, or maybe even shorter?
Well, let me carry over one thing. I forgot to do it. You brought up a point last time about using timelines, so use that. Use timelines. That's another good one to remember. Like when this happens, after the discovery of this, they've got so much time to figure that out before the Carmen Sandiego escapes or something, or she goes to another city. But as far as the timelines and stuff for an actual game, with a larger mystery like this, you are going to be looking at something like a multi-session, I'm talking the long sessions, multi-session thing usually to do. You can do it in one session if you're really fast with clues and stuff and you're tight with the story and you don't really do a lot of the RP things. But the most success you have, to have more success with a globe-trotting adventure, is that they've got to come home at some point. So they start somewhere and then they go somewhere. And then they have to have a home to go back to, like a home base. It doesn't necessarily have to go back to the same city they were at, but they have to have a home base to work from, to get information from. You see this, going back to the Indiana Jones things is a little anachronistic. It's not quite right, but it's a little bit of a simplification. But Indy had places he could go where were safe, and whether that was a friend's house or something like that, you're going to need those places because you're going to have an intense investigation. And in Indy's case, you had an intense action scene, but then you had to stop and solve mystery stuff. You had to have a safe place to solve mystery stuff. You're going to need that in your mystery games too. So with these globe-trotting ones, they're going to benefit from that longer, giving it a longer time period. You don't have to do that all in one big arching story, though, necessarily. Seth Skorkowski, who we've mentioned before, does a lot of the Call of Cthulhu things. And the Call of Cthulhu stories, a lot of them are designed to fit together if someone wants to weave them into an existing story. They are editable and vague enough to be able to do that. And that is where you'll see a lot of the globe-trotting Gumshoe stuff shine. That global intrigue shine. Because whether you want to do a BPRD or paranormal investigation type of thing with like BPRDs from Hellboy, if you're doing that where they have the BPRT, but then they go out and do those mysteries. Those are really good for that type of thing. Borrowing again from Cthulhu. But you don't have to do that everywhere. It is useful and helpful to have that. And those mysteries can be leading up to a bigger one. That's one of the benefits of the Globetrotting mysteries, is that they can be leading up to something together. With our local mysteries, you don't see that as much, because usually small locales are kind of quiet. You know, not a lot happens. If something is happening at that location a lot, then it's going to start to be a bigger location because more attention is going to be drawn there. I guess, I should have brought that up last time. So for last time, for those of you that have stuck around, Gravity Falls, the kids show, Gravity Falls is a good one for localized recurring mysteries. So you can look at that if you want to. There's a little bit of paranormal in there, but it still holds up because it's not clearly defined magic. Soft magic is very useful in that. Hard magic can be, but if you got rules, you got to stick to the rules. For this one, the globe-trotting ones are going to benefit from those longer ones, at least in my view. You can do it, but they're always going to end up coming back home. So you can do one mission in a setting and one mystery, but they're still going to, if they like it, they're going to want more of a globe-trotting one usually. That's my idea on that.
Well, I feel like that kind of checks out, or at least in my own experience. So for writing, I feel like I guess maybe depending on what you're reading. I was going to say for the most part, I feel like a lot of stories, there's some kind of mystery to it because, you plot investment and all that, something's happening. But the last one I wrote, there was some mystery there. Like these people were trying to figure out it was a fantasy setting. People trying to figure out where these white dragons come from. They thought this guy had summoned them, and turns out he didn't. Yada yada yada. But it spanned across a couple different kingdoms. So that one was I think it was right at 120,000 words. It was one of my fatter ones. Whereas the next one I'm on it's all contained in a single city, and there is some mystery and detective work stuff there. This guy's trying to figure out all this stuff and track down some baddies, but it's contained. The whole story takes place in one city, and it's about half the length of that other one. Checks out, man.
Yeah.
Takes more words for those widespread mysteries, I guess.
Yeah. And
I guess that you think about it, well, there's more people getting involved and there's more to uncover, I guess. So.
And something to consider that's different in writing than it is in gaming is that in writing, every NPC matters because every word's going to matter. But in tabletop and in games, not every NPC has to massively affect the story, They may have just bumped into the butcher's son. That's it, He's not secretly some mass murderer. He's just the butcher's son,
Yeah, so you probably heard this, big thing in writing is every sentence has to matter, right? It's supposed to mean something. Every sentence is supposed to push the plot forward. Well, I'm pretty sure if anybody listening to this has played a TTRPG, that is not the case.
Yeah.
Because the party will, wander off in the direction they're not supposed to go.
They'll wander off trying to get a pet goblin or something.
Yeah.
Instead of actually saving the kingdom.
Yeah, but I guess, on that note, that could be interesting in a mystery thing, just watching it, for those who don't know, I haven't run a mystery game, so I'm speculating that it would be kind of entertaining to watch your party interrogate the wrong person, and go down the wrong road.
Yep. Yep. It definitely is one of those, as someone who has had some mystery in a game, not necessarily had it the focus, but had mystery in the game, I constantly put, because we have only so much time, there is a certain amount of trimming that you have to do to the reality that you're presenting them with. So you do want to do that, but you can sprinkle in amongst those nonsensical or unnecessary, quote, unnecessary things that lend realism, sprinkling in things that later recur. If they're paying attention, then that can start to set off some bells, like, oh, something different here or something like that. So you can do that, but don't count on your players to notice it. Usually, if they're not watching for it, they're not going to either write it down or remember it when they're playing. So clues need to be a little bit more boom than that. They need to have a little bit more
and like we had talked about in the last one, that article I found about having 3 clues instead of just depending on one. That was a big thing that article was focusing on. They called it avoiding making choke points. Like, don't have too much hinging on just one clue. You know, make sure they have multiple ways they can get there. And there was a little, I don't know if it was that article or a different one, they were talking about the same thing, about how you as the GM plotting this mystery and everything, that can also help you too, trying to come up with multiple clues where instead you would have just had one. It would give you more understanding. You could explore the situation more and things like that. And from a writing perspective, I can understand that, right? That's just like setting your character down and asking them a slew of questions, whether or not they'll actually get used, but helps you understand the environment more. And I was going to say understand the setting more, but that did remind me of a question. What setting do you feel like benefits for this kind of mystery where more of the world is involved? Like a futuristic one, a sci-fi, a fantasy, old gangster times in the Roaring 20s?
Well, as long as there's international travel, you can do one. But if you do something like in the Roman era, see, scale is going to be relative to the amount of travel that someone can do in a day, basically. So if someone can get on a boat and sail for a couple months and get someplace, well, you've just expanded your timeline, the in-world timeline of whatever you're trying to pull off in this mystery, by a lot. And you're talking years in-game long mystery. And that requires a certain type of character. If you're investigating a murder and you're in a port town and you guys just, they just find a body, unless the person lives there, they'll just leave on a boat. Murderer will just leave on a boat if he has no reason to stay. And that happens a lot, just like with a bar fight murder or something like that. And that can be good to cover up a more intimate murder. Maybe that's what you're going for. But you're going to have to give them a pretty solid clue that this is a setup, if that's what you're going to try and do. You would want to set it, going back to the original question of when you would set it in space, in time. Fantasy, it doesn't matter as much because you usually have some kind of mass transit from one large city to another, whether it's a teleportation circle, a controlled teleportation circle, or sped up airships or stuff like that. You have a lot to work with in fantasy. So as long as your setting can compensate for that, you can do an international mystery. If you have instead horse and buggy times, like a Western, having an international Western mystery is a bit harder. They had steamships and they had, but they didn't have airplanes yet. So you're talking about trains and maybe early automobiles, very early automobiles. And automobiles were luxury. You're not talking about it. You're talking about riding a horse to all these places. So stagecoach routes and stuff like that. So it'd be harder to do an international one there. You can pull it off if it's like in an official capacity. So maybe it's a spy thing. There have been spies since ancient times. So if you're trying to pull off an ancient spy mystery, man, that would have to be an episode all on itself. We'd have to spend a couple chats on that one because there's a lot of considerations there. It's easiest, if that's the question, what is easier? A pseudo-modern setting is. Because you have planes. If you have planes, if you have flight, whether it is in World of Warcraft or this pseudo-reality setting that we've been concocting, either one is doable. Something good about mysteries, not necessarily international mysteries, but mysteries in general, is that they happen in any setting, so you could pull it off. In fact, if you do pull it off, I'd like to know how in the comments on those not so recent times, how you would pull it off. So I'd be interested. But that's kind of my answer to that.
You know, you're talking about mysteries in a more modern setting, so... In the last one, we were talking about how hard it would be to have a mystery in 5e with all the magic, you know, to do that. Actually started off writing science fiction and ended up ditching it because I just found it way too difficult to have any kind of mystery or sneaking around or anything in a futuristic setting. Because technology, like, it's just it was too hard for me to get around because it's like, man, there would be cameras everywhere, there'd be this, there'd be backups for that, you know. I feel like that's the same. You got magic on one hand and futuristic technology on the other. It's like, man, there's a lot of overlap there with problems.
There is a lot of overlap, so dealing with the technology issue and the magic issue do kind of have a similar problem. The situation with magic is that it's usually unexplained. Even in something like 5e, which is a soft and hard magic system, it's hard in the sense that you know what it is, what it does, but you don't necessarily know how it works. Like if you're tracking components and stuff like you're supposed to in some of these games, not necessarily 5e, I don't guess, but in some of these games, if you're tracking those things, then casting spells becomes more difficult. So you can offset it that way. When it comes to technology, I mean, there are people that get away with a lot of crimes today. And it's kind of one of those things where you've got manpower. In the city, there's cameras all over the place, but people still commit crimes. And they still get away with them. So you can do it, like, up to our modern time, you can do it. You could even do it further forward. And I think one of the reasons, like Cyberpunk, taking Cyberpunk as an example, the setting, not necessarily the game itself, but the setting of a Cyberpunk setting, it's high-tech, low-life. That low-life part doesn't mean the technology's not there. It just means that the technology is either in ill repair or stuff along that line where you're having to, maybe this one's out. So say you've got cameras that are supposed to be on every corner, but everybody kind of knows that that one over there has been broken for years and the city still hasn't fixed it. It can be something as simple as that can set off a mystery of a body of a rich, taking Cyberpunk 2077, Arasaka executive is found there in this slum of a street. How'd it get there? What happened to him? We don't know. This camera's out. Why is this camera out? So, you know, all that type of stuff. And those type of things can be played with in order to work from a futuristic setting if you want to. It is more difficult since a lot of technology is set it and forget it. You know, you don't have to do a lot of stuff with tech. You can just once the infrastructure's there, it's there. Once the camera's set up, it's set up. Unless something happens to it, it's set up. Magic can be like that, but usually there's a time limit to magic, which makes it easier to learn the schedule of. So say that if you're working in a magic setting, maybe that spell has to be refreshed every 4 to 5 days. That seems fair. You know the schedule. Well, the schedule's supposed to be secret, we'll say. Someone figures it out, and now there's a heist, and all the things that were protected in that are gone. Like, outright gone. There was an anti-magic field, it was not refreshed, and now it's outright gone. You would have to get rid of the permanency spell. Or at least make this particular location not be able to afford it. Maybe it's too new. I don't know. Because you have to do it for 100 days or something like that. So, again, it requires a lot more thought. It is more fun, I think, to set things maybe in the... anywhere from... kinda now... maybe early 2000s. Backward towards... 18... well... I think the best mysteries are probably, for right now, going to be Far Future where it's cyberpunk, or at least globetrotting ones. Far Future where it's cyberpunk, or 1900 up to now. So that's a wide range. You could have a lot of stuff in there.
Well, all right.
Did you get all of your questions answered?
I mean, for now.
Okie dokie. Well, I blathered on. We're at the 30-minute mark already. So, I've been yapping. What do you got for a Scrat's final question or something like that?
Well, I don't know if it's a thought. I'll give you something to do.
All right, so we changed. Last time you said, let's do questions, Scratch questions.
I got a question. But before the question is, you want to go down a little rabbit hole, is you can look up the Dunwich mystery from Fallout. It's really great.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I think, if it's the one I'm thinking of, that's the one that gets into some Lovecraftian stuff. So
you are correct.
It's pretty great. Yeah. It's pretty good. So my question, I know when you've already got some players in a game kind of established, you know, you've got characters established, you're a little bit into it. It's a lot easier to dump a mystery into it then, and that they want to solve it, like, because they're already invested. So the super easy example of that would be, the adopted goblin disappears, right? They're going to be invested. They want to go find out what happened to that. So,
give me back our goblin.
What are the tricks of the trade to get players? And I think you had mentioned something about having players invested before. What is some good tricks to start a game with the mystery that they are invested in?
All right. Well, you got to know what your PCs care about. If it's money gets them involved. That's pretty easy. I think players, not just other players, but we as players, can sometimes overestimate money as a motivator in somebody's life. Because say someone offers you $1 million, but you got to do a suicide mission. Well, what good's that money going to do for you? You wouldn't take that. You have to find something that's desirable for that PC. So you don't ask what they want money for. You don't ask if they want money. You ask about the characters, what the characters are going to spend the money on. And you as a GM are unique in that you do not have, the other players don't know. Like if this barbarian is secretly sending money back to the orphanage that he grew up at or something like that, the other players don't necessarily know that at all. But you as the GM will. And so when there's problems at his old place, like his old town, there was a murder in his old town that has his orphanage in it that he's been funding, he would probably want to go check that out. Like if he heard about that through hearing about it at the pub or something like that, still sticking with that barbarian example, he's gonna want to go kind of check that out, make sure his place he's been helping is fine. Well, what if it's not? So he becomes invested. So the trick is to know what motivates the PCs. What motivate not the players, but the player characters. What motivates them? What are they spending their money on? If it's wine, women, and song, and there's just a bard for wine, women, and song, well, that's going to boil down to probably prestige and probably ego. And you can really fluff up a bard's ego by saying, you're gonna be able to write this great song from this sonnet, and all of that can start to motivate them. Now, if you have players that are like, if you have players that are saying, but my character wouldn't want to do that, he doesn't care about that, he just cares about getting laid and stuff like that, well, then you'll never get the better stuff. Where do you want this character to go? What do you want this character to do? Because you can ask your player then, well, why are you playing this character if he's not going to be heroic or do anything? And you can actually ask them why they're playing the character. Because a lot of the pushback that somebody will give about their character not doing something is really just the player not wanting to do something or to do something. So know your character, know your PCs, and know your characters, and once you know what motivates the player characters, you can usually trust your PCs, your players, to go along those lines, or at least encourage them to, by saying, well, wouldn't your character want to do this? And if not, well, why not? I kind of put it in there for your character.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can be honest and open with your players more than you can your characters. So that's kind of my
fair enough
thing on that. All right, I guess it's my turn for a final thought type of thing. The thing I have is something that actually this Alexandrian article has. I will try to have this in the comment section. In the doobly-doo, I should say. It's in the doobly-doo. Your players are not Sherlock Holmes. And this is a two-pronged thing that I want to put out there. First, your players are not going to be geniuses like Sherlock Holmes is presented to be a genius. They're just not. Even with their high perception scores, your player could be playing somebody with a super high intelligence score and a super high perception score, but they could be dumb as rocks. We have friends who are dumb as rocks. It's okay, because we love them. They are our friends who are dumb as rocks. It's fine. Not everybody's super smart. But with the 3-clue rule and stuff like that they've got there, you can have an option for them to be able to play that smart character. And you also need to remember that they can draw on everybody else's understanding because they're the player, and the player character is separate from the player. They're two different things. The other side of that, the other thing I wanted to talk about with that is it brought up a literary character, a literary mystery solver. Don't look to Sherlock Holmes mysteries and Agatha Christie mysteries and a lot of mystery books. Don't look to those stories on how to present a competent, fully fledged game mystery, because writers will often purposefully withhold information from the reader in order to give the aha moment to their detective. And every one of them kind of does this. Like, there was something, Murders in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe, which was kind of a lead up to Sherlock Holmes, I think, if I'm remembering dates right. Edgar Allan Poe wrote that, and it's just crazy what it ends with, because you have no idea why it ends that way. I don't guess it's spoiler. Am I spoiling it for you, Scrat?
Nah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, if you don't want to know, you skip forward a few minutes. But you skip forward to the outro. But in Murders at Rue Morgue, takes place in Paris. The investigator is there and he's doing his thing. He's writing it, and Poe writes him out as a really smart guy and stuff like that. And he's got his assistant too, so it's very proto Sherlock Holmes. It turns out that, unbeknownst to the reader, like it just springs in there towards the last end of the story, that it was this guy's body was stuffed up the chimney, and that's how it was hid. And then whoever did it left and ran away. And there was like one eyewitness that only got a brief look at it. It turned out it was an orangutan. Now, that came out of nowhere. It really did. They found red hair at the murder scene, and that was it. That was it. You didn't get any idea except for the high athleticism of the person getting out and away, which I didn't really think was a big clue on him being an ape. But it's one of those things where you don't get all the story in those short stories. They're for entertainment. They're for fun. They're not for you to solve. They're for the characters to solve. Most of them. Now, if you have some that are not that way, where it's you can solve them along with the detective, I like those a lot more. It's one of the reasons I don't actually read a lot of mystery stuff, because a lot of the times they'll hide things from you so you can't solve it before the person solving the mystery does, the character inside. So, all right,
That would be one of those navigating the difference between writing and TTRPG moments. Those things you don't do when you're writing a game.
Yeah. I guess it's one of the reasons I like Columbo more than I like a lot of other whodunit. More than I like whodunits, because Columbo is a how catch 'em, not a whodunit. So, there you go. All right. I think that's enough for us tonight. You got any final things before we pop out of here?
We need a comment, and I had it while you were talking, and then I forgot what it was.
Mysteries.
So we'll just use the
orangutans.
Dunwich Well, or orangutans in the chimney.
The orangutan did it.
Orangutan did it. Okay. All right. I'm good with that one.
All right. So the orangutan did it. That's the comment.
And
we'll
don't
spoil
look up how to spell
everybody.
orangutan.
Oh,
you gotta try and figure out how to spell.
Oh, you got to try and figure it out yourself. We'll see who obeys that one. That part of the challenge.
I guess if you're on mobile and using your phone, you just use the spell checker or the autocorrect. But
oh,
you gotta at least get close.
Now
enough.
you're giving him an out. Now you're giving him an out. All right. Before Scrat gives you any more outs, thank y'all for stopping by. We hope you can swing over to Inn of Planar Crossroads or the IOPC.com. Either one works. We have our links all there for how to catch up with us on different things and support us if you'd like. The spot here on YouTube for a Squirrel Plays. He's got a, right now, I mean, I'm sure he'll come out with something before you guys see this, but he just did a how to be Goku Squirrel. That's what I'm seeing. It's a TTRPG character growth. And then also check out Crackminis with his scratch building of different Dillimaboppers and such things. There you go. Tell him that we sent you. And as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right, that one recorded fine. So we're set and on track. Let's see. Well, we're a little over time, but we're usually a little over time because of transitions and stuff. All right. So we've got this one. Next up is Globetrotting Gumshoes. Okay. Okay. Anything you want to go into before we start into the second one?
No, I'm good to go.
Okie dokie. Has this just become your default squirrel now?
I really like him. He works. Looks like he's going on an adventure, He's cruising.
All right, fair enough. Well, you do like your squirrels on vehicles, so.
I do.
All right. Room tone.